Hey friends, and welcome back to Practically on Purpose. Nneya Richards is a dynamic travel and lifestyle expert, writer, and on-air personality who seamlessly blended her passions into a multifaceted career. Most importantly, she's an old friend who I've known for over 20 years. Starting as a founding contributing editor to Teen Vogue at just 15, Nneya has since become a prominent voice in travel writing, contributing to esteemed publications like Condé Nast Traveler, Travel and Leisure, and Vogue Italia. Her blog, In a Perfect World, and her Substack newsletter, Nneya's Dolce Vita, offer readers a curated intersection of travel, style, and culture, all viewed through the lens of a New Yorker living in northern Italy. Nneya's work is not just about showcasing beautiful destinations, it's about fostering cross-cultural understanding and encouraging others, especially women of color, to see themselves as global citizens. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to build a path that's deeply your own. We get into opting out of traditional ambition, the role of discomfort in helping us grow, and what it means to raise a child across cultures with joy and intention. Let's dive in.
I was quite worried about breaking out the default path. I had the path that Amherst had set for me. And then with my background at Teen Vogue and interning in fashion before, I weirdly enough had a blueprint that I didn't really think about as a career because I wasn't sure about the Amherst plan. I wasn't sure about law school or business school, but I had this other experience. So for me, the crazy unsure world was the more secure one. For me, I wanted to be passionate about it. And like coming from Amherst and that traditional path, I saw a lot of people that weren't necessarily passionate about what they wanted to do. And that really scared me.
Hi, I'm Allie Canton, and this is Practically on Purpose. It's a podcast for all the people who've done all the right things and are now looking to build a life of deeper meaning and purpose.
So you are the true multi-hyphenate. There's a lot of people these days are like, I've got a portfolio career. And I feel like you invented that before it was even a thing. So you're travel writing, you're podcasting, styling, brand consulting, public speaking. There's your mother. And how would you describe what you do?
So lately I've been using the moniker digital entrepreneur. Because there is like an umbrella of so many things that I like to do and ways that I like to connect with people. And even when working with an agency, they were like, oh, it's really hard to sell you because you do so many things. And so it's definitely something that I've leaned into. And, you know, with my attention span and how I like to work, I can dip into this, dip into a little bit of that and embracing the chaos. And it's fun. It's fun chaos for me. Because I get to use different parts of my brain and give other parts a rest when I need to.
When you need to, totally.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you actually have felt pressure to narrow your focus, that when other people look at you and they're like, well, this is not, there's this guy who I follow, his name is Paul Millard, and he writes at, it's called The Pathless Path, kind of like about future of work. He'd probably definitely be in this like digital entrepreneurship category. And he prides himself on having a career that's not necessarily legible to other people. You just have like one little like tidy moniker. And I feel like you've been doing that for such a long time. And to your point, I think that it's something that is actually a source of strength for you, right? Like where these things inform each other.
I think it's interesting because like in just the social media realm, if you have a really strong niche, your following can grow exponentially and a lot faster when you're like just in this niche, you're just that focused. But what happens when that thing is not trending, for example? And then and also in that respect, when your audience isn't as wide and diverse and they're not expecting all of these diverse things from you, they can easily turn on you when you go a way that they don't like. Or like kind of are like my, just thinking about social media right now, like my audience has seen my motherhood journey and I started with talking about women traveling solo and navigating as a Black woman traveling solo, but it was giving recommendations, and my recommendations are just as fit for a white man to support these businesses and going in these spaces that are following my motherhood journey. And I think that that way it creates an open conversation with people. And that's what we're speaking about before, about building community. It's like kind of being between those worlds. I think it's very liberal arts college of us.
It is. Well, actually, on the note, so, we went to college together. We went to Amherst College, classic liberal arts college. And, even then, it felt to me like you were carving your own path. I remember you were writing for Teen Vogue. And I'm like, oh my God, if we've got a Vogue columnist here. You were traveling, we talked about study abroad, and you always had this phenomenal sense of style. You were a campus style icon. And, even though Amherst was giving us this classical liberal arts education of like how to think, how to write, how to build a life, it sometimes felt like we only had a few choices after graduation. So we talked about this. It's like, so you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, a banker, a consultant, or, if you're more of the bleeding heart, maybe you'll go into teaching. There are a lot of people who went into education afterwards. Did it feel brave at the time to break out of that default path?
At the time, it didn't feel brave. I was quite worried about breaking out the default path. I had the path that Amherst had set for me. And then with my background at Teen Vogue and interning in fashion before, I weirdly enough had a blueprint that I didn't really think about as a career. And so going into fashion PR was almost like my default.
Oh, that's
because
so interesting.
because I wasn't sure about the Amherst plan. I wasn't sure about law school or business school, but I had this other experience. I had all of these other internships in the fashion world, I had the internships in like the crazy onshore world. And I had already dipped my fit. So for me, the crazy onshore world was the more secure one, like coming from Amherst and that traditional path. I saw a lot of people that weren't necessarily passionate about what they wanted to do. And that really scared me. I think kind of my mom put that bit of a fear in me because she always wanted me to like achieve my dreams and be happy with my dreams a little bit, with my grandmother deciding what high school she went to. So I was kind of raised to do like to make probably too many of my own choices. That's my mom's way of rebelling because she was always forced in her choices.
She was forced, yeah. But it sounds like while you didn't necessarily have this blueprint for your path that was handed to you in terms of, okay, you're going to go to this school and then you're going to do this and then you're going to get that type of thing, you were actually given a set of values. So one where success from the get-go always involved being happy. Like hearing you say that your mom, she wanted you to be successful, but being successful involved being happy.
Exactly.
And that's actually it's kind of like a radical idea because, I know that my blueprint for success certainly didn't include that. It was like, oh, you're going to work hard and you're going to grind. And, happiness that's like a nice to have, if you're providing for your family.
Exactly.
If your family's happy and healthy, like maybe that'll make you happy. But it's very cool that your mom, she really had the foresight to be like, well, the sacrifice isn't worth it if you're not lit up.
Exactly. And with my family, there was a safety net. So that like idea, quote unquote, that you'll never be homeless. There's always someone, and our family is like that because interning at Teen Vogue, working in fashion, it paid such a low amount. And living and being from New York City, I was able to live at home. And I think that that's why a lot of these fields to me are so exclusive to who can be a part of them. Because if you don't have a lot of family money, or if you don't have, like me, I had a place to stay. I didn't have family money, but I didn't have
you
to
had
pay
a roof
rent
over your
when
head.
exactly. And that's what you need. And so to even have these internships, they're so exclusive. And so I had this sense of responsibility that they were kind of queuing it up for me to be happy. So I had to take advantage of that I feel like it's, like I'm thankful to my family by that idea of success is to be happy and to live life, like really live life. That was something that was important to my grandparents, like that you enjoy life. They're always saying you can't take it with you.
So
So
true.
like, yeah. And so set it up that you're going to enjoy yourself. And part of enjoying yourself is other people around you being happy. I remember interviewing at some of these consulting firms, and one, they called me after an interview, really trying to get me riled up and get me angry and competitive. And that's not really my nature. And I was like, you know what? This is so not me. And what am I doing? And it wasn't a culture fit for me, but knowing that I could be making more money and not happy. And it was a decision for me that at the end of the day, what route I was going to take. And yeah, I had to make that decision eventually.
And that takes so much maturity and that takes so much self-knowledge. So kudos to you, because I think that you figured that out, way before I did. Where, I remember I think it was my freshman year of college. They had this thing where it was like Goldman Sachs brought a whole bunch of women down to the city, and like they were showing off Goldman, and you got to stay in a hotel for the night. And I remember after that experience, I was like, well, I'm going to go work at Goldman Sachs because like those people are fancy and they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I can barely do multiplication. Like, what the heck was I thinking, that I was going to go work there? I think that if they had made me a job offer, I probably would have taken it and would have just continued down that path, ignoring some of the signals about like, is this actually right for me? Is this an environment where I'm going to thrive, where I'm going to be happy, where I can bring my full self? And it's just very cool to hear you're like, all right, well, I want to make some money, which is real, right? New York City's extraordinarily expensive. But then you got in those spaces and you got in those places and you said, well, actually, that's not, not the most important thing.
Exactly. And it was very hard for me to say that, to ideate that, to even figure that out. But I knew it in my gut. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to stay in fashion and sell some of these clothes on eBay. That's what I was doing to make my rent.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy, but I definitely know looking back that I made the decision. It led me to my life and maybe if I was at one of those companies, I don't know, like would have found a different path of happiness. I hope I would have still, been being the core of who I am. I would have figured it out, but I could easily see myself like working myself to like a panic attack or a breakdown, because it's just the nature of who I am. Well, if I'm in here, I'm going to be the best at it. I'm going to be doing that, and I could easily get riled up into that environment, and that's what scared me actually in part of that interview process, because I felt like myself getting angry and getting hot and being like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do that. And I didn't like seeing that side of myself. So yeah.
You're like, oh, that's not me. That's not my best self.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So your move to Italy wasn't just about scenery. It wasn't just about a cute boy. It actually felt like more of a reclaiming. What did you discover about yourself when you left the US and stopped performing for some of these like default expectations that we have here?
So I was working in PR and fashion, I was still kind of in that rat race, being by the nature of New York. You're out every night, you're at an event, you're meeting people, you're doing this, you're getting clients. I worked with the Obama administration, with the White House for a fashion event. And I got an email from the White House about the event, and I forwarded it to my mom and said, like, are you free that day? Is very silly how casually I sent that email to my mom. You free? So it was just, I was in that rat race, and I needed a change. I was traveling a lot, and I had started travel writing and had PR clients. And we were going to France, and I decided, what about if we booked a one-way ticket? That was that. Like it was all set. And I wanted to feel a little bit of discomfort. I wanted to be uncomfortable. I needed that idea of resetting because everything had become so formulaic, in terms of how I was working, how I was performing, how I was showing up for friends, in relationships, like my dating life. It was kind of, it was, it became to me like a little bit of a scene, a little bit of a cliche of like that New York life. And something wasn't fitting. It wasn't right for me. And I needed a change. I needed to shake things up. So I went to Paris. It was amazing. It was so lonely in like the best way because I had to sit with my thoughts. I was there until the fall, and then I had a work trip that brought me to London, and I stayed there. And that's when I started to live there and met my husband around Halloween time. We decided to like extend my stay. Dating was going well. So I stayed in London for a bit, but that was kind of this idea of craving the discomfort and wanting something different from the life in New York City. Because, being from here, growing up here, I was with my same friends who are, at this point, they're like my siblings, and we're so close, but I was doing the same thing. And I couldn't figure out why I was like, what was driving me, what was exciting me besides the environment. And I needed it to be more than just to keep up. It was a lot of ego driven, and I was just craving something more. And I knew like if I wanted to write more, create more, I had to dig a little bit deeper. I couldn't block out the noise while I was in New York.
Yeah. So what did you learn about yourself when you got out of your comfort zone?
I learned about a lot more how resilient I am. I learned not about myself, but I learned more patience, and I learned how to deal with more discomfort, whether it's a language barrier, whether it's jumping over a bureaucratic hurdle. It kind of goes
in Italy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I also learned like resiliency, and I learned about what drives me. I was able to have more time to think about like my family history and I learned to appreciate my family more, and like what they've gone through for me to just be there. I've always been a thankful person, but I didn't reflect on just how much it's taken for me to get where I was and how much sacrifice. So I learned a lot more appreciation for my family life. And in that, I learned how to be a good partner. Because like I said, my dating life in New York was like basura, like it was garbage, chaotic people.
Yeah, dating in New
And
York
it was
is
like
a thing.
I wasn't able to vocalize what I wanted.
Yeah.
And even in terms of like what I wanted from my career and the next steps, because a lot of times you're just always just so mired in it that when you're accomplishing the goal, the idea, everything was rolling into another, which was great, going full steam ahead. But you've got to like look back, check out the big picture, evaluate, get out of the rat race to just figure out, is this what I want to do? I found it really hard to do in my like late 20s, early 30s in New York City. I just needed to
It's
keep
just
up.
like from the next to the next to the next, and we're in the default mode, and we think we're being intentional, right? And that we're there for a reason, even though you grew up in New York City, the choice to go back there after college, right, is to achieve a specific vision for ourselves. And we're so busy and our days are so full that it's really difficult to take a moment and be like, wait, is this still what I want to be doing? So definitely me 2-3 years ago really wanted to be doing this and really wanted to be in this mode. But do I want to keep doing it? And am I attracting the types of circumstances, the types of people around me that are really consistent with the life that I'm trying to create?
And even what you said about the choice to go back there. So I just went home. And so, and for me, I didn't have this like moment where I made a choice. Like I packed up my stuff for college, I brought it back home and then like continue and then just dropped back into my life. So I think I was also craving that like life changing, like life jolting moment that everything kind of rolled into each other a little bit too naturally for me. One of the bigger jolting decisions I made, like that really shook me up, was when I studied abroad. And so I kind of always saw, okay, I need to get out of New York, get out of the US to understand and reframe and be out on the outside looking in. Because when I'm in here, I can't, and not in a bad way. I can't see straight because it's very comfortable, and I go into autopilot. And to do a proper evaluation, I kind of need to be out of autopilot for me.
So let's talk a little bit more about intentionality and discomfort. Tell me about your decision to move to Italy and to raise your daughter there.
Yeah, so that was mainly my husband, actually. So he had a startup in London, and we were discussing about moving to where London wasn't home for either of us. And it was kind of either we're going to move to the US or Italy. And we decided to give this family business a try. That he was like, it'd be cool to work with something, with, my name on the door, that I could be really passionate about and going full of it. And it's a knitwear company. He didn't have a
Wow.
background in fashion. Yeah, he was like at City, his first job out of college, and then his startup was an app. And so it was very like
Totally different world. Yeah.
totally
Actually
different
more
world.
your world, right, than the
Right,
world that he was
right,
comfortable
exactly,
with.
exactly. And so completely different. So we're both like fish out of water, kind of going in it together. He hadn't really been connecting with this city since he was in high school. He went to college in Milan and studied abroad in the US and then went to London. So it was very funny because we both are, in a sense, building life and community there. Like he has his family. So his family's like pretty nuclear to us going there. Like his work, I decided, okay, well, I could work from Europe and figure it out and figure out the learning curve there. So we're here for the next, I don't know how many years. It's really good to have a young kid there. It's a small city. It's very easy. It's like kind of the size of a neighborhood in New York City. It's really small and walkable, that like I walk everywhere there. It's an old medieval city and it's gorgeous. And so it's really nice raising a kid there. But then I love her being in New York, and I love her to see like diversity of people. For a little biracial girl, I think that that's like extremely important. So I think that it's really important to have both, and why I'm like, it's not a forever place for me for her. For now, it's good as a kid for her being so young. And I think kind of it leans into why I actually chose to have her in the US. Like first, what we were discussing earlier about postpartum, my community was here.
Yeah.
And then the US health system can be abysmal, and Black maternal health is scary.
So you and your husband and now Blue, you're living in these two very different worlds, and it feels like, you're really consciously pulling the best from both and kind of trying to like discard the rest as much as
Yeah,
possible.
we
Um,
try.
we try, right? I'd be curious, what are you prioritizing teaching Blue when it comes to ambition, success, happiness, or even traveling the world as a Black woman?
Yeah, I think I am prioritizing teaching her to be herself. That is of the utmost important to me, that she can be loud, she can have a big laugh. Like her teachers are like, she's so social, she's so American. So I think I'm prioritizing and teaching her to be comfortable in her own skin and being herself. And I like, from her curly hair, like I love like her hair. And there's maybe two other Black kids in her school, and like everyone's like, oh my God, look at Blue's curly hair, look at Blue's curly hair. And just comfort in her own skin in who she is, in that, she's from two places and she can speak both languages, and she is different. She's very different from her Italian cousin. She has like a different perspective of like she's more similar in that sense to her American cousins. Because they have more of like that third culture kid experience than her Italian cousins, like the same town, the same thing, and so it's very different. So I love her to have that experience, and I love her to see like they're all different kinds of people, and there's so many different kinds of ways to live life. And yeah, I think that's my priority, and for her is teaching her that through travel and through meeting people, that level of comfort in your own skin by meeting people that are just very different and very happily living their life, and that she can laugh with this person, she can laugh with that person. And I think that that's idea of community and fun for her. I want her to, like, she says hi to everyone when she walks past them on the street. And I want her to always have that, like, love and magic for people and meeting people.
Oh, that's so sweet. And it feels like, even a refinement on what your mom taught you, right? So, like, to go back where your mom's like, I want you to be successful, but I really, really want you to be happy, and that you are really showing Blue that from an early point in her life by also exposing her to different people, different ways of being. And, hopefully she'll be able to pick up that experimental approach to life and just try different things on for set and be like, does this work? Do I like this? Do I not like this?
Exactly.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, and speaking out, I think it's just so important, raising young women to advocate for themselves and speak out.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like it's like, I think we're way past, hopefully well past, like, the little girl should be quiet and play with a doll in a corner
Should be seen and
generation.
not heard. Kind of
Exactly,
thing.
exactly.
So to switch gears a little bit, you're someone who's constantly on the move, literally, metaphorically. What are some of the practices, the places, or people that help you feel grounded when life is so fluid?
Oh, yes. So I used to meditate a lot, like doing guided meditations. Say whether I'm in a hotel, whether it's like listening to the surrounding, like opening the window when I get to some place and hearing the ambiance of out there and taking that moment. That's kind of one of my practices, like that morning practice. Sometimes I wake up early if I'm in a new place to wake up and take photos. And so that's kind of one of the grounding times for me, is to, what am I doing during those transition periods, whether it's like waking up, walking around, exploring. I love people watching, and that grounds me in a place, like being a nosy neighbor, I must admit. Like, I'm full on
That's
Rear
fun over
Window.
there. Yeah.
Like, I am, like, I will, and Blue does it too with me. Like, she'll sit with me, and because she sees me doing it, and just stare out the window. And what are the neighbors doing across the way? I'm sitting outside, sitting at the window, whether I'm traveling, whether I'm home. That's kind of one of my more grounding practices. So if I can't meditate, I know I need to have like some time where I'm just still.
Yeah.
Maybe not a guided meditation as much as I would like, but there's always some moments of stillness in my day.
No, and I think that is so important. I feel like, especially coming from New York City, it's all about the go, go, go. And I teach meditation now. So one of the things, the analogies that I make is that we can't just be inhaling all the time. We can't just be, consuming and doing. We also have to be being. If you're actually just inhaling all the time, you're basically just hyperventilating. Like, that's just what you're doing. So you need that place for stillness, and I totally get it, like looking out the window and maybe daydreaming a bit, or just taking it all in and like zooming out your perspective. I'd be curious, what advice would you give to a person, who's been a high achiever, who's looking to step into purpose and authenticity?
Taking the time for self-evaluation and doing it, kind to use in high achiever language, doing it quarterly. And so whether you are doing it because you're trying to figure out the next step in your career, or you've just had all of these amazing things happen. Is it to go towards reaching your goal, or is it one extra thing to do? And like, you just like, you were doing it to check a box, or like you said, doing it to drive your ego.
Yes.
And so like using like that is your productivity goal, overall well-being. Is this helping my goal of overall well-being? Am I going to be happy doing this? So I would say, yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing, that take 4 times a year for self-evaluation, whether it's work stuff, personal life. Am I not taking enough time with my friends because my overall well-being? I need to have a catch up with friends at least once a month.
It's a familiar exercise to us to, you know, direct it at well-being, and just taking a moment to get ourselves out of that default mode of, I'm going to execute, I'm going to crush this, I'm going to do that. And like, how am I feeling? So that's wonderful.
Yeah, like Michaela and I talked about it in the new year. Like, how was last year? How is this year going to be in terms of our goals and what we want and what we want more of? And I think putting it out there, that out of your head onto a piece of paper, onto a Substack, speaking it to your partner, something that you will go back and hold yourself accountable in that sense, but also give yourself grace. But like, when your balance in life is good, it's a really, really happy, peaceful feeling that's addictive.
Yes.
That's an addictive
That's
feeling.
addictive. Yes. Well, I think that's the perfect place to end. Nneya, thank you so, so much. If people want to follow along on your journey, where can they find you?
My Instagram, Nneya, and on Substack, Nye's Dolce Vita.
Thanks so much for listening to Practically on Purpose with Ali Canton. If you're enjoying the show, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, or forward it to someone else who might need it. You can also follow along or reach out anytime at alicanton.substack.com. I read every note, and it means so much more than you know. Special thanks to Mutual Benefit for the beautiful music that brings us in and out each week. You can find more of their work wherever you listen to music. And until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stop living someone else's success story and step into your own.